Have you ever stopped to think about what really gave Roman soldiers the strength to endure so much? It wasn't sorcery or a miracle. It was wheat. Yes, that same grain we still use today to make bread. But unlike our modern bakeries, soldiers didn't have anything ready-made. They carried raw grain in their backpacks, ground it using a small portable mill they brought to the camp, and prepared their own food right there, in the middle of the dust. This wheat turned into a thick porridge, a flatbread, or a hard biscuit made only with flour, water, and salt, called buxolatum. It was so hard that they sometimes had to soak it in wine or water before eating. But the upside? It could last for weeks. It was durable, practical, and gave them energy to keep marching. Bread was so important that it even came before the sword, because without food there was no soldier standing, no legion in action, and definitely no empire conquering the world. Hold on. Before we continue, I need your help. YouTube only shares this video with more people if there's a lot of interaction. In other words, without your comment, this knowledge could be buried and never reach those who need it. If this content makes sense to you, comment 1. If you disagree, comment 0 and tell me why. I want to see at least 100 comments here so YouTube understands that this topic needs to be spread. So drop your comment now and be part of this mission to reveal the secrets of ancient Rome. Alright, let's move on. If wheat was the legion's fuel, barley was almost a punishment. Technically, it was edible, but among the soldiers it was seen as horse feed. When a legionary received barley instead of wheat, he already knew. Either he had done something wrong or punishment had arrived. This practice was called frumentatum, and it wasn't just a grain swap. It was humiliation. Imagine yourself, a warrior of the greatest empire in the world, having to chew something you'd usually feed the animal carrying your gear. That hit the pride. In this case, food became a symbol of status, honor, or shame. And in such a disciplined army like the Roman one, even what you ate said a lot about who you were. Living only on wheat and legumes seems like too little, right? And it really was. That's why, whenever there was a chance to eat meat, soldiers' eyes lit up. But don't think that was common. Meat in a legionary's life was almost a gift from the gods. It didn't come pre-packaged from Rome. Soldiers had to fend for themselves. They hunted whatever they could along the way. Wild boars, hares, rabbits, even deer, depending on the region. And this hunt wasn't just a necessity. It was disguised training. They had to be silent, coordinated, and patient, just like in combat. Miss the shot? No dinner. And when they raided villages, they didn't miss the opportunity. They took the local livestock, especially pigs. Speaking of pigs, they were the legion's favorite. You could do everything with them: salami, ham, bacon. Even the fat was useful for cooking. It was a feast, but with one key detail. None of it was guaranteed. Either they hunted or they went hungry. Not every day there was meat in the camp, so soldiers needed alternatives that were more constant and practical. That's where legumes came in. Simple, cheap, and extremely nutritious. Lentils, peas, fava beans. All of these were part of the legionary diet. Easy to store, long-lasting, and quick to cook with minimal utensils. When mixed with wheat, they became thick soups and stews that filled the stomach for hours. For the poorer soldiers, this kind of dish was a real relief. No luxury, but it gave strength and kept the body running during long marches and battles. Plus, they required very few resources to prepare, which was perfect for those constantly setting up and tearing down camps in the middle of nowhere. It was real food, nourishing, warming, and reliable. And over time, these meals became part of the army's identity. Simple, tough, and efficient, just like the soldiers themselves. Between one march and another, there was always room for a different flavor. And when it came, it was in the form of fruit. But don't be fooled. They were rare. Almost a luxury. When they showed up, they were usually dried. Figs, raisins, dates. They were brought by merchants or picked in the regions the army passed through. They were sweet, light, and gave a quick burst of energy when the body needed it most, especially in critical moments. There's even a famous account. In a moment of extreme hunger, King Philip V managed to get a shipment of dried figs for his troops, and that alone was enough to lift morale and restore the men's strength. At times like this, it wasn't just about nutrition, it was about morale. A new flavor amid a harsh routine could shift the mood of an entire legion. And as simple as it might seem, a small piece of fruit could make a soldier think of home, feel hope, and keep fighting. Among all the foods in the Roman diet, one of the most overlooked but essential was cheese. Few people realize how valuable it was for the soldiers. Made from cows', sheep's, or goat's milk, cheese was lightweight, long-lasting, and didn't need a pot, fire, or any special prep. It was simply practical. It could be carried in small chunks, eaten during march breaks, on night watch, or even between tasks. And it didn't always come ready. In many camps, soldiers themselves made cheese during rest periods. Archaeologists have even found presses and tools used for that. It was almost artisanal, made by them, for them. A kind of food stability amid an unstable, exhausting routine. Cheese became a companion, a boost, and even a silent reward. It didn't have the prestige of meat or the symbolic weight of bread, but without a doubt, it was one of the invisible pillars of physical endurance in the legions. If this content makes sense to you so far, do me a favor, give me a sign. Comment 1 down below so I know you're with me on this journey. And remember, YouTube only spreads this knowledge if there's strong interaction. If you haven't commented yet, now's the time. I want to see this video packed with opinions so this topic keeps reaching more people. Let's keep going. For a Roman soldier, eating was essential, but drinking could be a matter of life or death. But the water back then wasn't always safe. Imagine drinking straight from a stream in unknown land. The risk of infection was huge. So a simple but brilliant solution came about: Posca. It was a mix of wine vinegar and water. Sometimes, they added honey, herbs, or spices. The taste was strong, acidic, but it helped kill microbes and prevent intestinal disease. And more, it gave energy, refreshed, and even helped with digestion. For the wealthy, it was a poor man's drink. But for soldiers, it was like a natural sports drink. Each one carried his flask, and this mix was always present on every campaign. Not a luxury, but a survival guarantee. Among the many items Romans carried on campaigns, 2 often went unnoticed, but were absolutely vital: salt and olive oil. Starting with salt, it wasn't just for flavor. It allowed meat, fish, and even vegetables to be preserved for long periods, and more. It was so valuable that many believe the word salary comes from salarium, the bonus soldiers received to buy salt. Without it, food spoiled, supplies ran out, and the march stopped. As for olive oil, it was the empire's true wild card. It was used for cooking, seasoning, preserving, and even outside the kitchen, for skin care, wound healing, and protection from cold. Romans transported oil in large amphorae marked with origin and quantity, like it was liquid gold. Wherever there was a legion, there was olive oil. It was part of the invisible machinery that kept the empire running. Simple, but irreplaceable. Behind every victorious battle was something that rarely shows up in history books: logistics. None of this, wheat, meat, legumes, cheese, oil, or salt, made it to a soldier's plate on its own. Entire centuria were dedicated exclusively to organizing everything. These were men trained solely to ensure drinking water, control stocks, distribute rations, and set up supply points at each new stop. They knew exactly how long each food lasted, how to transport without losses, and the best place to set up camp, always near water sources. Without this team, the army would stop, literally. And the most impressive part, everything ran like clockwork. Nothing was left to chance. It was a well-oiled machine, where every cog, including food, had its place. It wasn't glamour, it was survival. And this invisible system made of discipline and efficiency was one of the great secrets behind Rome's strength. After all this, it's clear that a Roman soldier's diet wasn't a banquet, but it wasn't random either. It was planned, tested, and adapted to work in motion, under heat, in the mud, and under pressure. Nothing was by accident. Every food item, from hard bread to handmade cheese, was part of a bigger strategy. It was a diet that reflected the very soul of the army. Simple, resilient, efficient. And maybe that's why the legions lasted so long, facing enemies, crossing continents, and leaving a legacy that still fascinates the world today. If you liked this content, leave a like. It helps me keep bringing you amazing stories like this one. And don't leave just yet. There's a video on the screen now that will show you another little-known side of Roman history. Something most people have never heard of, but it might completely change how you see the empire. Click it and keep discovering with me.